Hey, everybody. Welcome to the 75th week anniversary of free Q&A for anybody that wants to jump on it. And it's brought to us this week by our sponsor, Dual Boot Partners. They build great software. Are we now getting this as a paid sponsorship? Well, not really. Dual Boot Partners and Todd Bulow, shout out to him. He's going to be on this upcoming podcast of the Anything But Typical podcast. So you guys know the drill. Hit the Q&A for the questions. You can hit the chat and harass us. And our Washington Bureau Chief, Jack Santaniello, is having technical problems. I'm not sure what's going on over there in Washington, D.C., but there must be some sporadic power issues. I'm not sure, but you know what? You're in luck because Adam Boatsman evidently has a bit of a tirade ready to roll. So Adam, it's all yours.
It's not horrible in terms of a tirade, but it is a lot of information, tax and PPP related. So first thing, North Carolina PPP front. I didn't know this, but in preparing for this webinar, I'd done some digging around on the status of North Carolina PPP because I knew that the House and the Senate had both passed legislation to allow us to deduct expenses for PPP in North Carolina, sent it to the governor, and the governor vetoed it. But before everybody gets all mad about that, the legislation also included a repeal of the enhanced unemployment benefits. So if you look at Cooper's veto, the veto was related to the revocation of the enhanced unemployment benefits, not the PPP expenses. He was silent on the PPP expenses. So what do we got working for us now? Well, as part of the House and Senate budget resolutions that have passed with a veto-proof majority in both the Senate and the House in North Carolina, both, although they're worded differently, include a mechanism to allow for deductibility of PPP expenses.
What?
So they still got to work out their differences, and they still got to send it to Cooper. Cooper may pass it, Cooper may veto it, but it doesn't matter because the veto-proof majority. So, in theory, sometime this month. Thank you for the timeliness again, state of North Carolina, as we've been filing all of our North Carolina returns that we've been sitting on. There's a chance that we're going to get some PPP relief because it is. The Senate gets to there a slightly different way than the House does. The House is the way we want it, which is full deduction of PPP expenses. The Senate version is we'll give you a grant to give you some money back up to some limits, but it's a good sign that I'm cautiously optimistic on, regardless of whatever else you think of the North Carolina budget that was passed. I just thought it appropriate to say it ain't over till it's over. So in theory, I don't see it being removed from the budget. So if we play out what would happen, passes, Cooper vetoes it, Senate and House override the veto since it passed the veto-proof majority. Who knows? So let's just keep our fingers crossed. The second thing that I want to hit on is, Gary's always good at, stoking the flames of passion, regardless of where you sit on the side of the aisle. He's good at making everybody angry. Just kidding, Gary.
I think they're good at making everybody angry.
Yeah, I know. Gary's just the messenger. So with respect to the infrastructure bill and the Senate budget bill that was passed, kind of the speculation is, will the House pass a standalone bill on the infrastructure side of the House, which progressive Democrats don't want to do. They want to say, oh, reconciliation for everything, so we totally get our way. Some moderate Democrats say, no, let's get a win on the standalone bill that we got some Republican support for, and then let's take up the big bill that was passed, the $3.5 trillion bill. They, who knows what's going to happen in terms of the direction they take, but we're supposed to find out more next week, because that's when the House will be taking up which avenue they want to go. So that's just a general update. What I thought was really relevant, though, for the purpose of this call, is that you guys, there's been, obviously we're all concerned about, oh my God, how are we going to pay for all those? Tax rates are going to go up. And I still believe that. However, I wanted to highlight, you guys will recall, the news about Vote-A-Rama. So Senate, as they're debating the bill, have the opportunity to propose amendments, and they, Vote-A-Rama, they pass 14 hours of vote for this, vote for this, vote for this. Well, these were the tax related ones in Vote-A-Rama that passed. And by my read, there's only one bad one here. So regardless of how you feel about, oh my God, should we be spending this much money? It's way too much. Like, regardless of all that, the stuff that actually passed and the instructions from the Senate about how to resolve the resolution were actually not that bad. So for all the panic birds out there, this is what's actually in it in terms of past amendments combined with instructions on how to pay for it. So first off, getting a step up in basis when you die, just like we have today. So regardless of what they do with the estate tax limitation, they were silent on what they're going to do with the estate tax exemption. Remember, it goes away if they don't do anything by 2026. But what they did vote in the positive to keep is the step up in basis that you get when someone dies. So that's good news, because what it means is, the worst case scenario was they repeal the estate tax limitations. So you have to have an estate tax, plus you got to pay for all the built-in gain. Now, the way it would look is that they might lower the estate tax, but at least you would get the built-in gain in it. So that's generally positive. Making permanent the research and development credit and the ability to automatically expense research expenses. That passed overwhelmingly. That's awesome. There were two amendments related to monitoring our bank accounts. The Republican version that did not pass basically said, stay out of my bank account, you can't monitor anything, to try to start spotting for underreporting instances. The Democrat version that actually passed didn't set a dollar threshold, but they said, look, we only want to monitor people that have really big accounts to see if they're underreporting income. So, some Big Brother did pass, but it appears to be targeted at people who have significant account balances, just to see, whatever they do, to see if there's anything shady going on in those accounts. So that's good. That was a pretty close vote. Overwhelmingly passed. Hold Biden to the pledge to not increase taxes on people that make less than $400,000. That passed like 99-0. So that's positive. This is the one that I'm actually the most excited about, because this is the one that I was the most worried about. Overwhelmingly passed. No tax hikes for small businesses. So,
wow.
What does that mean? They're very clear that we have now defined small business as below 500 employees. The 500 employees and below, no tax hike, overwhelmingly passed. That to me is a big relief. Now, again, who knows how it's all going to stand, but that passed as an amendment in the batshit, whatever you want to call it, Senate bill. It was a lot of money. So,
Yeah.
So my libertarian blood is boiling over that much money. So then we talked about in the last call, the 1031 exchange, not messing with it, passed as an amendment. So I think that's generally positive because, I mean, when I read this, really, who's going to be impacted really within the BGW client base, our clients that have greater than 500 employees. Hey, Jack, love the background. Our clients that have greater than 500 employees. Yeah, we have some, so that there possibly is going to be an increase on that side. And, any high net worth people that we have that make greater than $400,000. But even then, what they're talking about there is only, 400. Sorry, what they're talking about there is generally, changing the rate to be a couple percentage points higher. But at the same time, they're also talking about bringing back the state and local tax deduction. So, that can help offset, some of the stuff. So I thought that was all good news. In terms of the reconciliation memo. So what this is, assuming the House passes something, these are instructions to the committee that will reconcile the Senate and the House versions of the bill. First off, they set a target for deficit reduction of $1 billion. It's like, woo! But what that means is it can't add to the deficit. And in fact, they want it to, their proposal, like the reconciliation, needs to actually reduce the deficit. So I kind of view that as a positive sign. The second is that the target should be corporate taxes. And to be clear, when they're talking corporate, they are not talking small business because they already said no small business taxes. They're really targeting Nike, Salesforce, Duke Energy. Why did I name those companies? Because last year they paid zero in income taxes. So they're really targeting companies like that to start paying what they would consider their fair share. Because, I don't think you can argue, because this is one of those unarguable facts, I think, the corporate share of tax receipts has gone down from, I think, about 20% 30, 40 years ago to now where it's, I think, maybe 10% of total tax receipts. So it's mostly individuals funding the federal government now, not corporations. So they're saying, look, I mean, and by individuals, remember that means small business owners, because most small businesses are flow through entities. They're just basically saying, look, large corporations, can you kind of get back to the number that you've been at historically in the past? So that's positive. The bad news, they want to probably socialize a little bit more of medicine. The good news is they want to try to reduce the cost of healthcare is another way to pay for it. And then they're going to do a bigger tax on carbon, or kind of the three provisions of how they want to pay for this. And, they basically said, look, let's target really high income earners for this, not low income earners. So tax fairness, corporate tax, healthcare reduction, carbon pollution are really the offsets that they're looking to help pay for this, in addition to just economic growth. So, I hear that, and while I think it's still a redonkulous amount of money, you can debate social welfare all day long, at least from the tax guy standpoint that advises small businesses. I look at it as like, look, if that passed and that's all that happened, that's not the freaking end of the world like we've been believing as the business owner. Now, as a U.S. citizen, it's like, is it really going to reduce the deficit enough and all that kind of stuff? I can debate that all day long. But as a business owner, I would say this isn't nearly as bad as I thought it was going to be. So with that in mind, my tirade is done.
Hey, that was actually pretty good. it was far more uplifting than watching the news lately. So thank you for that.
You got it.
That's depressing. Hey, speaking of depressing, Jack Santaniello is in the epicenter of depression at our Washington, D.C. bureau, high atop the cherry picker, Jack.
Good morning. Good morning. So yes, and actually it's kind of a windy day. I don't know if you can see my hair moving.
Yeah, it's moving.
Not too much. Yeah. Actually, see, I even stepped up my game. You can't see it, but this is this is a small fan that I keep in my office. So yeah, I'm like freezing right now. Okay. So thank you for going into the details. I could go into some of those details as well, but I think what I would rather do first is to give you, on all of you, what has happened over the past week and kind of where we're going. And I found a really good, I can't take the credit for this. It's an international law firm that has offices in Washington. And so I am saying that in order not to violate copyright laws, that I'm actually going to share with you information that was compiled by someone else and not me. So I'm not the original author. So therefore, having said that disclaimer, let's go into the news. So live from Shoemaker News in Washington, I'm Jack Santaniello. Infrastructure reform has been the talk of Washington, D.C. for many years. The Trump and Biden administrations have both made it a high priority, and the issue has now come to a head in Congress. Yeah, I got my teleprompter all good, right?
Wow, you've really stepped it up, Jack.
Yeah, see, I take constructive criticism really well. Okay. In July, the U.S. House of Representatives passed a $715 billion Invest in America bill along largely party lines. After months of behind-the-scenes negotiations, the U.S. Senate moved decisively to pass the $1.2 trillion bipartisan infrastructure bill, followed by a $3.5 trillion partisan budget resolution just prior to starting recess on August 11th. The U.S. House of Representatives is scheduled to return to session on August 23rd to take up both Senate-passed measures. While the prospects for infrastructure reform becoming law are stronger than they have been in years, there are a number of potential pitfalls that could derail the efforts this fall. The bill was negotiated by 5 Republican and 5 Democratic senators with direct involvement by the White House. It followed an unsuccessful attempt by ranking members for several Senate committees with jurisdiction over infrastructure to broker the deal with the White House. The bipartisan deal was drafted as an amendment in the nature of a substitute to the House-passed Invest in America Act. In taking up the measure, the Senate allowed an open amendment process that saw more than 500 amendments to be introduced. Again, another reason why things happen so slowly in Washington. Own personal commentary. However, only 11 amendments were approved. By a 69 to 30 vote, the $1.2 trillion bipartisan infrastructure bill, which includes the $550 billion in new spending over 8 years, as Adam was discussing, passed the U.S. Senate on August 10th. However, the bill faces an uncertain future as Speaker Pelosi has called upon her colleagues to return early from their annual August recess on the week of August 23rd to chart a path forward. Because the Senate compromise was passed as an amendment to the prior act, some in the House are calling for a traditional conference committee to resolve the differences between the two measures. Instead, Speaker Pelosi has signaled an interest in taking up the Senate-passed bill, but only in conjunction with a successful vote on the much larger budget reconciliation bill. In the coming weeks, all eyes will be on the House and Speaker Pelosi, who is largely aligned with the progressive wing of the caucus in seeking approval of the larger budget reconciliation package prior to a vote on the bipartisan infrastructure bill. Speaker Pelosi penned a letter on Sunday, August 15th, requesting that House Rules Committee explore the possibility of a rule that both packages have to go through. House members already rejected that compromise proposal. It's still not clear which wing of the party will prevail. Both progressives and moderates appear to have voted to support their distinct and competing strategies. They also appear willing to take a public stand, signaling this become a prolonged fight, potentially halting progress on either legislative package. Ultimately, it may be up to the White House to push through a compromise that can be enacted into law. reporting live from Washington, D.C. I'm Jack Santaniello.
Oh, Jack, I'm kind of speechless. You
that a
have
good-
really you have quantum leaped your game.
Notice though,
Yeah,
I did
think
a faux pas that news reporters do is they need to stay focused on the teleprompter and not look where the lens is. And I caught myself looking up every once in a while. So sorry about that.
Well, you're just your toughest critic, but yeah, Joe's a little bit tough on you last week, but anyway.
I'm good with it.
Well, I got to say, I am actually more encouraged now that I've heard that stuff, especially from Adam's details, and even that North Carolina PPP deductibility isn't kind of completely dead on arrival, even though basically we were processing tax returns this week because we said, hey, they didn't move, so I guess it's more work for us. But nonetheless, I am encouraged by some of that. Any questions out there we've got a lighter crowd today, and that's okay. While you guys are waiting to throw a question up there, feel free to do it. I am going to be gone next week. So Matt Anderson, much younger, much better looking stunt double is coming in. So be gracious to him. Yeah, so it was our 75th week anniversary of doing these webinars this week. Tomorrow is my 38th wedding anniversary. So I'm out of here next week.
Congratulations.
Oh my gosh.
Our contract allows for like 1 or 2 skips per year, right? That's how it works, I think.
Well,
it was drafted.
My contract is still at Shoemaker Law. It's going through all the machinations. The bill just keeps going up and up and up. Well, more people touch it. I'm kidding.
We're just surprised that you're not more. We're surprised you're not more demanding. We're waiting for the additional demands for public performances and licensure, but so far you keep saying it's just for free. So we're waiting.
Yeah, no kidding. Speaking of anniversaries, 75th anniversary, and I think this applies to week anniversaries. The appropriate gift is diamonds. So far we've been settling for t-shirts, and Robert Mayetta upped the game. He gave us a polo, which was really nice for his 2nd anniversary. And speaking of Robert Mayetta, boom, he just hits us up with a Q&A right here. Any chatter, this is interesting, of a PPP 3rd draw given the spike of Delta? Have you guys heard anything?
I haven't heard of anything, but what I could see being probable is that while the ERTC was set to expire in September 30th with the Senate bill, $1 trillion infrastructure bill, I could see them potentially extending that until the end of the year, especially due to mass mandates and stuff like that are happening. I could see that. I could see an extension potentially happening to the RTC, but I've not heard of anything on PPP Draw 3. But related, and Jack, remember I gave you ample warning this question was coming, especially with news of a booster shot coming out. I did have a call with a client the other day that asked the question, look, if you have a vaccine mandate to come back to work, but someone gets sick and they file a workers' comp claim, and are people, are we potentially going to see workers' comp rates, preemptively rise due to that? So just wanted to see if you had any thoughts on that, since you are the guru on all things mandate.
So I did ask a few people here, and it's still unknown because, there's a couple things. It's okay. It's mass. It is forcing inoculations, vaccinations, and then this whole issue of a third booster shot. So now you're creating subclasses of people, of workers within your workforce, if you don't have it be very consistent, meaning that no one walks through the doors without a mask, without full vaccination, and potentially maybe getting the booster when it's available. So we're creating different classes within the workforce. And so then, as you said, what happens when they comply with that policy, specifically injecting something into their body and getting sick? Or, I mean, the other thing too is not just that, it is going into a work environment. If an employer chooses, for example, to have a blended workforce, which is, okay, if you don't have the vaccine, then you need to wear a mask and you're going to be around other people. So let's say it's someone, let's take the extremes. Someone who has had their third booster shot doesn't get sick, but it is linked to that person that they were a carrier. I don't even know if that's scientifically possible. Supposedly it is. So gets someone else sick who maybe didn't get that third shot, or maybe has chosen not to be vaccinated. You would think that, okay, well, that's a choice, that's their problem. Even though they were in a work environment where that occurred, they made a personal choice. So you can see how this just gets all muddy as far as, it's not as simple as being at work, a box falls on your foot or something on your head, and then obviously you were there at the behest of the employer. It was a situation where, short of somebody launching the box onto you as a personal issue with your coworker, then you have a workers' comp potential claim. This is a very complex, and I think it's going to take some time to unwind it, both with employers, so the insured, and the insurers. And then I think that you just add that to the list of things that of battles that will occur within the court system. And it may be that the insurance commissions and other regulatory agencies will have to come into the mix, which is likely what will happen, because you have that intervening governmental authority, the regulators on a state level, that and somewhat federal level with the Department of Labor, that can come in and say, okay, this is what we're going to do, this is how we handle those kind of things. So again, and then you have, well, do they really have authority over all of this? Because this is not your traditional employers workers' comp claim. So a very long-winded answer to what would seem like a very simple question, but there's a lot of things to work out. There's going to be a lot of opinions, and obviously a lot of lobbying, both on the state and federal level, with respect to insurance companies that would rather it be excluded from workers' comp claims. Yeah, but to your comment about premiums, though, I think regardless, it's going to go up because people are being protective. Insurance companies are going to have to finance their fight, essentially. So I think we're going to see likely workers' comp rates increase. Sorry to interrupt.
That's why I interrupted you, so I'm sorry
Okay.
for you, Jack. Nah, as you were sitting there talking, I mean, the other thing that dawned on me is, like, in this specific scenario, instead of, the default route would be, hey boss, I'm sick, sweet, you're not coming in, you ain't getting paid. But remember that in this specific instance, you've got 2 credits that you can use to pay the person. With the FFCRA, the Families First Coronavirus Act, basically it's something you can pay them, you can get a credit for them being out to get vaccinated, and if they have an adverse reaction, then you can get a credit for paying them. So, if it was me and that happened, knowing that, okay, what's kind of the longest side effect been? About a week. I mean, the FFCRA credit would cover that time frame of getting paid. So that at least, as Jack pointed out, you may have a workers' comp claim that is filed, or a workers' comp mod rate that's increased prospectively and defensively, but at least it ain't going to be because of your claim activity. If you just don't file the claim, pay the person, and take the credit. And that credit is an immediate credit because it shows up on your payroll tax filing. So you get it via a reduction of payment of your payroll taxes. So it shows up immediately. It's not like you're waiting on the government to give it to you. So that's what I think I would probably do in this case.
And I would also add a tangent to that, which will also be an interesting legal issue, which is, hey, look what I did. I'm an employer. I am providing this stuff, but I had this employee sign a waiver that, hey, we're providing this to you. It's your personal choice to get injected. It's your personal choice to come to work. So here's my get out of jail free card that you can't sue me. That likely is unenforceable. And so, but there's going to be fights about that too, which is, okay, as part of your agreement, as part of you coming back to work in our facility, these are the rules, and you are hereby going to abide by those rules. We're going to provide you personal protective equipment, meaning masks. We'll provide the opportunity and pay for, which we'll get a credit for potentially, for the vaccine. So because of all these things, you hereby absolve us of any responsibility if you get sick at the workplace. Oh, and also you acknowledge the fact that you might have gotten sick at the workplace, but it's just as likely that you got sick when you went out to get lunch from the vendor, the food truck downstairs. So all those things come into play. And I think that it's just again, one of the messes that we're all in the middle of. And I think it's going to take some time, meaning months, years, to sort all this out.
So a question just came in that relates to that conversation, and then we'll get to your next question, Robert Mayetta. Robert, you have really good questions. But here's the one for you, Jack. What do you think about the legality of creating a lottery at a business where all employees who are fully vaccinated are entered to win one of 10 $500 prizes?
That's a great question. So really the underlying question is that, can the lottery be deemed maybe some sort of coercion into getting the shot? And that actually has come up when, for example, North Carolina and other states have offered certain things as prizes, monetary prizes or other things, and other employers have done that. So I am not personally aware of an adjudication of whether, it's legal to have rewards within your business. So as I said, the question is likely more, okay, does that increase your liability for potentially someone getting sick or having a claim, or, okay, well, yeah, I'm just not going to participate. So all those things. And again, the lottery is legal. Well, I say that, I don't know if the opportunity to reward someone in a game of chance in exchange for them getting vaccinated is, I think, likely okay, but it's, again, something else to be adjudicated and to see if that's an issue. The more I hear and the more that I read is that private employers are permitted to set up the rules for their operations, which includes what the minimum requirements are for walking through the door. And to this day, as we talked about in previous weeks, the exceptions are for religious-based or medical-based issues. And so at this point, that's the pathway. And so private employers, and I have clients, and you guys have clients that are, it's all across the board. Some people are saying you are not permitted to come in here. Some employers are saying, show us your vaccination card or proof of a negative test within the past 5 days for you to walk in through the door. Is that permissible? Is that legal? And really a sub issue is that that's personal information. That's personally protected health information that you may not be, as an employer, entitled to ask your employees for, unless certain things happen, like there's an issue, and then you can ask for clarification. But to have a checkpoint at the door and have, and this actually came up, I heard this listening to the local news in the background. There's a restaurant in some adjacent county to Mecklenburg where a restaurateur has basically said, maybe it was a movie theater that said, we're going to reopen, but anybody who walks through that door, customer, employee, anyone, vendor, has to show us their CDC card or a test to get through the door. And, you know, with vendors, okay, I mean, it's, if they don't, then they don't get the vend stuff to you. As far as customers go, well, again, if it's not discriminatory, and same thing for employees. So again, you have competing interests. Again, a long-winded way of saying we just don't know. But this is a Jack theory opinion, that providing a financial incentive to participate, meaning a game of chance, in order to get an opportunity, you know, and get people vaccinated at this time does not seem to be an issue with increased liability to the employer who provides that game of chance.
All right, good. See, there's a reason we've got good legal minds on this thing. I mean, that's awesome. Glad to have you here, Jack. So here's the next question, and this is going to you, Adam.
No,
This is from Robert.
I figured Jack could handle this one.
Nope. No.
With the challenge of finding people to work here in the US, if a small business hires a contracted outsourced bookkeeper in the Philippines, are they required to withhold some of those funds and submit them to the IRS per publication 515, withholding of tax on non-resident aliens and foreign entities?
No, Robert, you're going to be good. Nah, in all seriousness. So what this document, what this regulation applies to, that is going to impact most of our clients, is, you know, two scenarios. Scenario number one is you have a partnership and you have a foreign partner. So US company making US income, but the partner lives in Germany. You know, real world scenario, we actually have that within our client base. So in that case, the US wants their share of the money. The second scenario, which would be more applicable to what Robert's talking about, is I hired somebody as a US company that was a non-resident foreign taxpayer. Do I have to withhold taxes on them? The answer is, if the work's performed in the US, yes. If the work is not performed in the US, meaning it stayed in the Philippines, no, you don't have to do anything with that.
Man. Robert, you got your money's worth today. He's got double helping of his money's worth today.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I saw that Carl was on here for a second, and then it looks like he dropped off. I was gonna have him fact check me on that if we need to.
Yeah, he's getting ready to retire. He's got to take it easy. Oh, all right. Any other questions out there? We still got a little bit of time, but we're not going to belabor this if nobody's going to ask us any questions. Man, the chat has been light too. It's just,
Everybody's on vacation or worn out.
yeah. Where are you, Joe?
Yeah, it's kind of one of those things where it's like there's not a whole lot more to talk about. It's kind of, you know, go watch the video from last week, and then, but other than, okay, you know, and the reason why I shared the timing is that, yeah, there's some obviously politics going on and timing, and so really sounds like nothing is really going to change until, we're not going to know more until next week. But there's negotiations still going on behind the scenes, but I don't think we'll hear anything publicly other than opinions until next week, and the House picks this stuff up.
That's right.
All right, so I'm going to make the last call for any questions. You got about the duration of one dad joke.
Oh, good. I put one in my pocket from home. I was like, okay, surely this won't be too bad. All right. What did the plant say when it was hungry? Dun, 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 dun. All right. I could use a light snack.
Oh boy, that's awful.
Oh, come on.
Oh my gosh.
Okay, so I think everybody has to put themselves in the right mindset that these are dad jokes, because I don't know.
that's
I
right.
think the expectations are too high. So lower your expectations.
Yeah.
Right. So
Children.
this is how. Speaking of lowering expectations, so when I was on the CLE speaking circuit, I would walk in, obviously in a suit, and it's a bunch of lawyers, right, and sometimes CPAs that are taking it, and so and they're all, you know, they're there usually towards the end of the year because they have to get their credit, and they're like, okay, well, I guess I can go listen to something that might be of moderate interest to me on the business side of things. So you have litigators in the room, and so I would walk in, and I saw this actually on a late night show after Saturday Night Live when I was in college called Nightstand, and he was a Jerry Springer kind of guy, but just totally wacky and messed up. And so one time he comes in, he's like, okay, and I walk in, and it's a blank set of Post-it notes, and so I sit there. And I'm going to turn off the background because you might not be able to see me do this. And it needs to have the effect of you seeing what I'm doing. Okay.
So you're going to reveal that you're really not in Washington, D.C., man. You've completely.
Well, no. I transported. Wait, hold on.
Okay. Beep.
Yeah, hold on. All right, we're going to go see blur. I'm being transported, and now I'm here. Okay.
Oh, there you go.
All right. So I would sit there with this and get up there and kind of look very nervous, and I'm like, okay. And I'm like, hello. I'm Jack Santaniello, and I'm here to talk to you about business structuring. And I'd keep pulling these things off, and I'd go for like 30 seconds. And what the guy did in the show was he had flash or the cue cards, and he'd be like, we'll be right back after these. Oh, messages. And, you know, it's just stupid. Like, and so after 30 seconds, I pause and I look up, and they're all just like, oh my God, what have I walked into for the next like 4 or 5 hours? And so I look at them and I'm like, here's the reason why I do this. I have just lowered your expectations to like the basement. So the next things that I say the next hour are going to be absolutely brilliant from that perspective. So now we're good. And then I go into it. So yeah. So and the reason why I say that is you guys need to lower your expectations on the dad jokes. So that way they can only go up as far as being humorous. So because you're up here with expectations, lower your expectations.
Yeah,
They're dad
that's
jokes.
true.
Okay. So anyway.
Well, and
that's a long-winded way of saying I would like it for you guys to laugh at my jokes every once in a while. Just saying.
Well, Carrie Dykeman weighed in. She loves your dad jokes. So you got one admirer.
Woohoo!
And also those third grade science teachers, children, we're going to learn about photosynthesis today. Oh, light. I get it.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my goodness, that's fun. Well, I'm going to miss you guys next week.
Have fun on your anniversary, man.
Thank you. Gonna have some fun, hopefully. Anyway, you guys, anybody that came on late, we will put this up on the BGW CPA YouTube channel later on this afternoon. Thanks to Rachel Coftry and team. So you guys have a great rest of the week and enjoy sunshine. And it's a little humid out there, but we're not shoveling snow. Have a great day, great weekend. See y'all.
All right.
Bye. Thank you.